On this week's episode of You Like That podcast, it's a full-on NFL draft special. We narrowed it down. We're a couple days away from the draft. We're going to do our own mock draft, talk about some Vikings rumors floating around, and we're going to give you the best NFL draft content that we can leading up to the draft.
Welcome back to another episode of You Like That podcast. It's Monday, April 26th, and we are a few days from the NFL draft.
I've been waiting for this podcast for literally a year now. I know for those who you have followed us since we started this podcast, we started it after the NFL draft last year. So we have not gotten to do an NFL draft week podcast, and I've been looking forward to this week since we started it. Jackson and I love the NFL draft. We love it. We've been doing some research. We've been making our own mocks, doing some scouting and getting a feel for what's going to shake down here on draft day Thursday night. And man, it's crazy. And as soon as it comes, it's going to leave. But I'm just going to enjoy this moment now because we got draft season. We don't know what the Vikings are going to do yet. There's some stuff floating around. Some stuff came out today. So let's touch on that first. Coming out this morning, a report from Tom Pelissero, who covers the Vikings for NFL Network, saying that the Vikings are calling teams in the top 10 to gauge what they would need in return for the Vikings to move up into the top 10. And it's rumored that this would be for a top tackle in the draft, whether it be a Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater. But some people have been throwing quarterback names as well. What do you think about the possibility of the Vikings moving into the top 10? And what would you want them to do? And what would you expect them to do if they did that?
I don't see that happening. The Vikings are not notorious for moving up too often, especially Rick Spielman. I just don't see what that benefits too much. It's still gambling over a tackle. Neither one are for sure studs. Some people may think they are, but that's just a lot of gambling there to try to move up. And Rick would have to give up more draft picks than he'd be receiving. So that's just not something Rick's going to want to do. But the Vikings, it really depends on how the draft goes. If the number 4 pick, let's say the number 4 pick is Kyle Pitts. Yeah, and the offensive line goes to, we'll get into our mock draft, but let's say the Bengals with the 5th pick go Sewell. And then you have one guy who's the top ranked tackle. And it just depends on if the Vikings really want to move up and see if they can grab one. So, yeah, I don't see this being a possibility for the Vikings. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't see this happening, but the Vikings definitely could do this. There's a lot of rumor, but there's always rumor before the draft.
It's a weird possibility because leading into the draft, we've talked about it a little bit, but we haven't really put much thought into the Vikings trading up just due to the fact that we don't have a second round pick this year. And Rick's a guy that always loves to collect picks. We know that. So when we're thinking about trading, we've been talking about Vikings trading down and adding a second round pick. So this rumor coming out that possibly gauging interest to move in the top 10 threw me a bit off guard. If we were to do this, in my opinion, it'd be for Rashawn Slater. I don't think Penei Sewell makes it past like 7. I think 7 is where Penei Sewell goes at his lowest point. And the teams that are rumored to be interested in trading their picks in the top 10 are the Lions at 7 and the Panthers at 8. And we all know NFL trading, you don't normally trade in division. So the Lions at 7 is kind of off the table unless the Lions make an exception to trade with the Vikings for the Vikings to get up to 7. But I don't really see that as a possibility. So if we were to move up, I would guessing it would be with the Panthers at 8. And I think at that point, Penei Sewell would be gone and Rashawn Slater would be the pick.
Yeah, I would think that would be the most plausible situation. But yeah, it's trading in the NFL draft is probably the hardest thing to predict. So I just don't see this. I don't see this happening. But there's always a chance for everything.
And we know GMs call like every team in the league to see what their trading price would be. So it's not like out of the ordinary that the Vikings are calling to check on this. It's just Rick and the front office always like to be precise in what they're doing. So that's obviously an option, but we don't see it happening. Another reason I don't necessarily see this happening is because if you look at the draft trade value chart, it plots like the points that every pick in the NFL draft is worth. So if we were to trade up to the number 8 spot with Carolina, the picks that it would take was our first round pick number 14, our first third round pick. So that's pick 78, and then two fourth round picks. So that's what it would take to get up to 8. And I don't see Rick trading 4 picks to move up a couple spots to get a tackle. It's just not what he does. Unless he's throwing in 2021 picks, which he doesn't like to trade future picks either because he knows he wants to use those later. So don't see it as a possibility right now. It's obviously a big price to pay if we're going to move up 6 spots and grab a tackle. Some people think it's worth it. I think the fan base is pretty split on whether it's worth it to get a top tackle like that or if we should just stick where we're at and move down. But overall, we don't really know what the Vikings are going to do right now. It's kind of all over the place. There's not really rumors coming out of Minnesota on who we're interested in. So it's going to be an interesting draft night. I see the Vikings maybe moving around, maybe moving down because there's a lot of offensive line depth in this class. But it's going to be a fun night to be a Vikings fan, fun night to be a fan of the NFL. And like every podcast, this week we want to dedicate to our NFL draft, mock draft. So we're going to do it here. Jackson and I planned this out a while back, and Jackson's going to pick odds. I'm going to pick evens, and we're going to go the entire first round, and we're going to pick what these teams, what we think these teams would do in this position. Obviously, we're not GMs, and we don't have the best talent. We're not the best at talent evaluating. So we're going to pick where we think these teams are going to go with their selection, and we're not going to do any trades because that just gets messy and throws things off. So Jackson, I'll let you get started here as I share my screen for you watching on YouTube. I'll let you get started. You have the number 1 overall pick. It is Trevor Lawrence, I would assume. Unless you're going to throw a wrench in this, I would assume it's Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence.
I mean,
that's all you got to say.
The Trevor Lawrence has been locked into the Jaguars since, the Jets won their game against the Rams in December, and everyone just shit on the Jets because they lost the number 1 overall pick. Trevor Lawrence is already donating to charities in Jacksonville. Pretty easy pick at number 1. Do you think, I'm not sure your exact opinions on Trevor Lawrence, but do you think in a couple years that Trevor Lawrence has the potential to take Urban Meyer and the new look Jacksonville Jaguars to the playoffs?
Not a chance. I think he's potentially the biggest bust there ever was.
Really?
I think he's gonna be a good player. Maybe worth the first. Well, he's gonna be worth the first overall pick. He's the greatest prospect in a decade or so since Andrew Luck. So he's gonna make the team better. It's gonna be a Colts situation. I mean, Andrew Luck really didn't have much team success with the Colts. So I don't see this changing the Jaguars franchise.
So Trevor Lawrence locked in at 1, obviously been the consensus pick for a while now. I'm up with the Jets at 2, and this one's pretty much locked in by now too. It's Zach Wilson out of BYU. He kind of came out of nowhere this year. He had an injury last year at BYU, so he obviously didn't play up to the level that people wanted. But this year he came out of nowhere, showed his arm talent to scouts, led BYU to a fantastic season. Locked in here, the Jets at 2, and hopefully, I'm like a background Jets fan, I guess I would say. I root for the Jets. I root for teams that have a lot of misery, and the Jets are one of those teams. So I'm hoping Zach Wilson pans out for them and they can get something going there in New York.
Zach Wilson, yeah, it's an interesting pick because he's a lot like the Joe Burrow situation or Baker Mayfield situation where, it seems like every year we're getting this quarterback where they're undersized and they're coming out of nowhere and they have a terrific year and it gets their draft stock. If Trevor Lawrence wasn't there, he'd probably be going number 1 in this draft, obviously because he's projected to go number 2. But so yeah, and the interesting thing about Zach Wilson, just because of his injuries and his inconsistency before this year, he actually was playing for his job at the beginning of the season this year. But yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson's going to be an interesting project for the Jets. I wish he wasn't going to the Jets if that's the case. But yeah,
I'm
I mean,
scared that the Jets are going to ruin Zach Wilson. I know it's not Adam Gase anymore, but there's still just that fear in the back of your head. I know you're not a huge fan of Zach Wilson. I am.
no,
I
I think
just don't want them to ruin him.
he needs to be in a better system than the Jets. He's not a
I
kind of
mean,
quarterback where he can play
if
in any
Zach Wilson
system.
were to fall to the Niners, which is not going to happen, that would be my dream scenario to him. I think he would light it up in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, that would be the best case scenario out of any other team. It would be the 49ers. Speaking of the 49ers, is the third pick in my pick, and I'm going to go. It's a pick between Mac Jones and Justin Fields, and I'm going to go Mac Jones. I just think Kyle Shanahan wants his quarterback and the system. The 49ers are going to give Kyle Shanahan, the offensive genius, what he wants. I would assume
Sure.
they're gonna give him the quarterback that he wants because he can feel more confident with him. And as he said today, nobody is guaranteed life every day. So he's gonna kill Jimmy Garoppolo soon. So
Yeah.
his quarterback room will be open, and Mac Jones will fill in.
If you miss it today, obviously Shanahan had his press conference. He was asked, "Will Jimmy Garoppolo be on the roster or be your starting quarterback come Sunday?" And he's like, "We're not. We're all not even locked in to be alive on Sunday, so I can't answer that question." And he also was kind of talking trash about if you listen to what people thought on social media, he wouldn't be in the position he is in, which is to me just a sign of him defending the Mac Jones pick, as 49ers fans are really not excited about it. So I think that kind of all concrete puts Mac Jones in this third spot overall. I think that's where most people are leaning at this point, even though they had a workout with Trey Lance this past week and really liked him there. But I still think it's going to be Mac Jones, quarterback Alabama, and he can maybe be the Kirk Cousins of Kyle Shanahan's system.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, Mac Jones is just the most interesting quarterback in this draft, just because he's not one that he rose in the draft stock after the year, obviously, because he was not supposed to be drafted. I don't think. I mean, he was a backup at Alabama, and his draft stock has rose many months after this season, which is very interesting to me because that just seems very almost sketchy.
He was seen as like a second, third round pick at the end of the season. And you see a couple players like that every year that are seen as like a second or third rounder that as the draft gets closer, they keep rising and rising and rising the ranks. And we'll see if that pays off for San Francisco taking that big of a risk. But Mac Jones to Alabama, kind of what we expect to pick number 3. Pick number 4, Falcons. I think that they do want to trade this pick. I think that they're open, and I know that some team is going to have to move up to get these remaining quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Trey Lance. Whether it's Atlanta, I don't know, but I think they'd be interested in moving back a little bit. But for this scenario, we're staying with our picks, no trades. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts at 4 to Atlanta. I think that this is where Arthur Smith wants to go. He's obviously loved tight ends in Tennessee. He had Anthony Firkser and Jonnu Smith, and he's going to bring Kyle Pitts into Atlanta. And as long as they have Julio on the team, it's going to be Julio, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, a lot of offensive weapons from Matt Ryan to try to revitalize his career and go back to at least a decent quarterback form. I'm going to Kyle Pitts at 4. I think most people consider him the best non-quarterback in this draft. So I think that's where Atlanta goes if they stick with this pick.
Yeah, I see it, Kyle Pitts too. I don't see them drafting a quarterback. I think they're still in the mindset where they have a decent enough roster where they could compete for playoffs. So I just don't see them going over for a quarterback for that. But number 5 pick, this is where this and maybe the Atlanta pick is where the draft really starts to get dicey and a little undetermined. But I'm going to go Penei Sewell. I think he's the best tackle in the entire draft. I think he's very talented. He's maybe one of the best players in the draft. So I think the Bengals aren't going to aren't gonna pause to think about what to do here, and they want to protect Joe Burrow because they almost ruined their star rookie last year, not being able to protect him.
I don't know if you saw that picture of them with their new uniforms, that they had the Joe Burrow
Yeah,
picture and they showed
the
his
knee
scar on
scar.
his knee.
Yeah,
The Bengals don't want Joe Burrow to keep collecting those scars. Penei Sewell, obviously, one of the two guys being considered here, according to most analysts, it's either going to be between Sewell or Jamar Chase. Jackson goes Sewell for the Bengals here at 5. It's a good pick. You can't mess up with the top left tackle in the draft. So they're making moves to protect Joe Burrow, and I like that pick. Picking 6 here. This is this scenario is the Dolphins' best case scenario for them. I don't think they would have gone Penei Sewell if he gets there at 6. They picked Austin Jackson, left tackle, 20th last year. So they obviously have a plan there. Even though he didn't perform the best, I don't think they go back-to-back offensive tackles. So I think this is why they traded back up to 6 is they wanted to get one of Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase. And thankfully, the Bengals passed on Chase in this situation. So the Dolphins are going to rush to the podium, draft Jamar Chase, give Tua, who struggled in his first year in Miami, another weapon out there. He's got Jamar Chase and Devontae Park now, and I think that would be really good for the Dolphins. And I don't see them going any other way if the board falls this way.
yeah, that's what I had too. In my mock was 6 to Jamar Chase. Yeah, he's the best wide receiver in this draft. I don't think it's as close as many people think. I think Jamar is just by far the most well-rounded wide receiver. With the number 7 pick, the Detroit Lions. This is one may shock you. I don't know. I mean, the Lions would need a quarterback. Jared Goff's not the answer. I would be very shocked if he rejuvenates his career. I'm gonna go Justin Fields here. He's a project to a lot of people. I think he's maybe the second best quarterback in this draft. That's my opinion. But a lot of people think that he needs to sit for a season. And Jared Goff, he's an established quarterback. He's made the Super Bowl, and he's a good quarterback to sit behind or maybe take his job. I mean, Jared Goff, it's his contract year this year. He's only supposed to stay there 1 year, and I don't see them extending him especially if they draft Justin Fields. And I think Justin Fields is a great quarterback to run a franchise.
Yeah, and a lot of mocks are seeing the Lions. People don't really know what to do with the Lions. The organization has been pretty tight-lipped through this process, so no one really knows what direction they're going through. But people forget, yeah, they got Jared Goff now, and obviously he's locked up for a couple more years on his deal, but that doesn't mean that he needs to start. And if you get a chance to draft one of the top QBs in the draft, you take him. Regardless of your situation. And that's what Jackson did here with Justin Fields. Obviously, it's not something that has been seen, but I actually like the pick because I think this is a dark horse team to draft a quarterback that a lot of teams are forgetting, that a lot of people are forgetting about when making their mock drafts. So we got pick 8 here. I got pick 8, Carolina Panthers. Rumored that they might want to trade back, collect some more picks, but here at 8, I'm going to take Rashawn Slater, Northwestern offensive tackle. The left tackle in Carolina is a position that they haven't really figured out for a little while. So putting this in front of Sam Darnold, this actually gives them a pretty good offensive line. People forget in last year's draft, every single one of their picks was on the defensive side of the ball. So they obviously need to add to the offensive side of the ball here and getting a good low line in front of Sam Darnold. And you got some weapons out there too. You got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. This could be a good offense. Hopefully for their sake, Sam Darnold pans out, but I think they end up passing on a quarterback just because maybe they're giving Darnold a year or two to maybe prove himself, and they'll look at it later down the road. But Rashawn Slater, very good left tackle from Northwestern, didn't play this past year. He opted out, but no one's questioning his strength. He's got a little question about his arm length, which is obviously concerns a lot of people when playing left tackle. But I don't have a concern about it, and I don't think a lot of teams will either. You take the best player available, and in my mind, that's Rashawn Slater.
Yeah, and I don't think you trade for a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who's still 25, 24 years old, and draft another quarterback. I just don't see that happening. And the Panthers, they want Darnold to succeed, and Darnold is really their X factor to the team. So protecting him at all cost is very important. Now, here is where the draft may go all over the place. There's projections all over the place for this pick. I have Micah Parsons going to the Denver Broncos. He's a fast linebacker who can help that defense a lot. He was considered one of the best players in this draft a year ago, looking ahead. But after opting out this year, a lot of teams didn't really get to see him that often. But he's still a well-established player in college football, and he had a great career in Penn State. So I think Micah Parsons can really help this defense, and the linebacker sitting with the edge rusher Von Miller. You need someone back there with good speed and can cover and rush sometimes. So the Broncos are a team where they were more retooling than rebuilding, but they're looking good. They have a lot of young studs on their team. So I think this defense was very good and overachieved last year. So adding another piece can go a long ways.
Yeah, Vic Fangio, coach of the Denver Broncos, is always keen on having one of the better defenses in the NFL, and he's a great defensive coach. A lot of people think they're going to add a quarterback here. This situation, Trey Lance is on the board, but if former Vikings assistant GM George Payton, who's now the GM for the Denver Broncos, if they don't like Trey Lance, obviously they're going to go who they think is the best player available. Some analysts see Micah Parsons as a top 5 player in this draft. He is fast. He didn't play last season, but no one's questioning his talent. He does have a little bit of off the field issues. I don't know how concerning that is to team, but Micah Parsons picked there for Denver at 9. Pick 10, Dallas Cowboys. I think this one everyone's predicting cornerback, and we all know that Dallas was going to go all in on defense last season in the draft, and CeeDee Lamb ended up falling to them, I think, at 18, and they couldn't pass on a player like CeeDee Lamb. So they took him, but they need to address cornerback this year. Obviously, they added Trayvon Diggs from Alabama last year, but he didn't have the greatest of rookie years. I think they're going to add another Alabama cornerback, Patrick Surtain the second. I think that he's going to be a good fit in Dallas. Jerry Jones loves his SEC guys. Patrick Surtain, not that this matters to Jerry Jones, but Patrick Surtain's dad talked about how he really wants the Cowboys to draft him. I think it's just a good fit, and it's definitely a huge need for Dallas as they try to at least make their defense competent and help Dak on that side of the ball, since they're having to put up 30+ points to win football games.
Yeah, this is what I had too as well. I mean, this is really lining up to my personal mock draft very well. But yeah, Patrick Surtain, you put Alabama, he's a big name. Jerry Jones. I mean, I think this is a simple pick. Who's he going to pick? The best Alabama player available. He usually does. And Jalen Waddle's a wide receiver, and they picked one last year. So Patrick Surtain is I think the pick too. I have number 11, the New York Giants. They could really go a few places as well. Looking at what we have available, I mean, could they go quarterback? Are they fed up with Daniel Jones? I don't think so yet. I think they're going to wait. Wide receiver is what I have them taking. I have them taking Devontae Smith, who I think is the second best. I think he's the third best wide receiver in this draft, but I think the Giants want that speed and that playmaking ability on the side of Sterling Shepard and
Kenny Golladay now.
Yeah, true. Kenny Golladay. I mean, it's a good wide receiver room if they pick this. I just don't see them. If you look at the board, I mean, the best tackle available is Christian Darrisaw. I think that would be a reach if they're going at 11. And I mean, I don't think they're going for quarterback. They really would. This is another team that could go for quarterback. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones is on the verge right now of people considering him a bust. So with the Giants, I believe what their plan is to surround him with the best weapons they can to try to give Daniel Jones another chance at succeeding. And they added a Kenny Golladay this offseason. Obviously, Sterling Shepard still there. Saquon Barkley will be back from his injury. So adding Devonta Smith to that wide receiver room and to that offense will give Daniel Jones all the weapons he needs. And if he can't succeed with those weapons, he's obviously not the answer. So the Giants obviously trying to help what they thought was their franchise quarterback and make a move on the offensive side of the ball with pick 11. I like that pick. Pick 12, one of our most hated teams in the NFL. who Justin Jefferson put in a body bag last week when he said he was definitely glad that the Philadelphia Eagles didn't take him in the 2020 NFL draft. I think if the board falls this way, Philadelphia is going to take another shot at a wide receiver and another shot at a fast wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. Obviously, he was out last season, part of last season with his leg injury, and he came back in the national championship game, but he obviously wasn't full health. No one's questioning Jalen Waddle's talent. He's super explosive, one of the fastest receivers we've seen in quite some time, a huge playmaker. I think that the Eagles would love Waddle at 12, and hopefully, not hopefully for us, but Jalen Waddle could succeed with whoever his quarterback in Philadelphia is, whether it be Jalen Hurts or Joe Flacco. So Jalen Waddle to the Eagles at 12 is my pick.
Yeah, I like that pick. They drafted a wide receiver last year, and it didn't work out last year. A lot of injuries, but they still like Jalen Reagor, and putting and helping their quarterback as much as possible will be an urge. So yeah, I could see Jalen Waddle going with the Eagles. I have pick number 13, the Chargers. This is a team where they have a very young group and very talented young kids. I mean, obviously the rookie of the year, asterisk rookie of the year, should not have been, but he was. And good quarterback, Justin Herbert. So I think they're going to want to protect him. So they're going to take the best offensive lineman available. They're going to go Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. I think this helps the offensive line, which struggled last year with a rookie, and Justin Herbert was very good with the O-line they had last year. So I mean, helping it will only improve him as well. So they could use a few weapons or defensive players as well, but I think they're going to take the best offensive lineman available.
And the Chargers have made it clear this offseason that they're trying to put the best offensive line in front of the franchise quarterback that they can. They added Corey Linsley from the Packers, Matt Fielder from Pittsburgh Steelers, and now just that only looming gap on their offensive line is that left tackle spot. And Christian Darrisaw, I think basically every draft I've seen where he gets to 13, he's taken there just because of how big of a need it is for the Chargers. But that gives us, we're going to pick 14, the pick everyone's been waiting for. Jackson gave it to me because he didn't want to piss off the people. He let me do that job. I think if it gets to this position, obviously you see these guys here on the board. If you're watching on YouTube, this Trey Lance is still here. You got J.C. Horn, Jalen Phillips, who's been mocked to us a lot. But I'm going to go at pick 14. I know some people might like this. Some people are huge fans of this. Elijah Vera-Tucker, guard from USC. He played tackle last year. He moved up to tackle, but he's going to play guard in the NFL. And he's one of the best run blocking guards that I've seen in quite some time. A really good pass blocker, too. He doesn't get bulldozed over like everyone else that we have on our interior O-line. I know a lot of people are super high on Elijah Vera-Tucker. Other people don't think he should go this early because he's a guard, and interior O-linemen don't often get drafted this early. I think it's a glaring need for the Vikings, and I think it's solid value here at 14. So if the Vikings stay with the pick, I like Elijah Vera-Tucker out of USC. What are your thoughts?
This is a guy I haven't been too familiar with. I've just seen how much you like him and a few other people. And yeah, I mean, it's a need for sure. So I think anytime the Vikings draft an offensive lineman in the first round, it's definitely exciting. He's probably the best available if the draft goes this way. And yeah, I think this is a good pick for best player available for need. So I like the pick.
And I thought about Jalen Phillips. I know a lot of people are high on him. He was that like best D end coming out of high school in his class. He's had a lot of injury and concussions issues at Miami. I know with the amount of concussion issues that he's had, that could be a real medical hazard. And I don't know if we're ready to take a risk on that kind of player when we do have this huge need at offensive line, and there is value there at this point. So that's why I went Elijah Vera-Tucker at 14. Europe with the Patriots at 15. What is Bill Belichick in New England going to do with this pick?
Okay, so in my mock, I'm not going to say who the Vikings taking, but it's the best quarterback available, but I'm not going to say who. And so in this draft, I'm going to say they're going to do it. They're going to do what every NFL fan is scared of just because he's fallen this far.
Yeah.
They're going to pick Trey Lance with the 15th pick. One of the best quarterbacks in this draft. Some projected second best quarterback even. And he's not a piece where, in my opinion, he's NFL ready. I think he's a piece where he can sit behind in a good system and then become a good starting quarterback. And that's, I mean, what better system than the Patriots system and Bill Belichick? I mean, I know Cam Newton being the quarterback there, he's not the kind of same player as Trey Lance, but that's a good mentor in front of you. He's had a lot of success in the NFL, obviously NFL MVP and Super Bowl runner up. So, yeah, I think this is a scary pick for people who do not like the Patriots.
I've heard a lot of news coming out of the last week that the Patriots are really high on Justin Fields, and whether they trade up to get him or not, I think that they are targeting quarterback here, and they're going to be aggressive in doing so, just like they were this offseason in rebuilding their roster through free agency. Trey Lance obviously isn't going to fall to 15. There's going to be trades, and the quarterbacks are likely all going to go before the Vikings at 14. Just because we can't do trades, there's only so many teams that need quarterbacks in the top 14, so he falls here. But some names to watch, teams moving up, could potentially be the Patriots at 15, the Broncos at 9. The Steelers are also an option too in the 20s. But in this scenario, Patriots are happy to get Trey Lance, probably considered the most raw prospect of the top 5 quarterbacks, but also has one of the highest ceilings. Crazy arm talent, super mobile. Just has only played 1 year in FCS football. So Trey Lance has some work to do. He's probably going to sit behind Cam for a year in this scenario, and then he's going to step into that starting QB role for the Patriots. So for all you listening, I am going to do something right now. If you're listening and you saw it on Twitter, I'm doing a giveaway. So if you guys need the code, I'm going to give you guys an NFL draft guide from The Athletic. It's 267 pages long. You can see it here on my screen. 267 pages long, a full quarterback rankings, every single position ranked, long bios and all these people's strengths and weaknesses. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, we want to reward you guys for listening. So if you just DM us on Twitter, just DM us, you like that draft, and your email, I'll send this to you. It's behind a paywall on The Athletic, and we know how that works. We always click on Athletic things, and they don't let us see us because we have to get a subscription. So I'm giving this to you guys for free. If you just send us, you like that draft on Twitter, DM it to us, and then I'll send you this PDF so you can download that and enjoy it like we are. So we appreciate the support, and we're going to move on here. The 16th pick of the draft, the Arizona Cardinals. And this is kind of a spot where people don't really know what the Cardinals are going to do. I saw today that they're kind of aiming for wide receiver, but the wide receivers that are supposed to go in this range are kind of already off the board. So you kind of got to go best player available in this situation. And I really like this player from South Carolina. He's my number 1 cornerback on my draft board. And I think if he falls this far to Carolina, they're going to be super excited. They obviously lost Patrick Peterson this offseason, and they're going to replace him with J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Really aggressive corner. I love the guy. I think he's going to do wonders in the NFL. I think he's got a lot of skill.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot. I mean, you like this player. You think he's one of the best corners in this draft. If not the best. And I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking at the cornerbacks. So this is why I've been almost hesitant to draft them to teams really early just because I don't know. So yeah, I think J.C. Horn, from what I've seen, is a very talented corner, and the Cardinals are a team where everybody thinks they're going to be competitive. With Kyler Murray entering his 3rd year, so it's a team that needs a defense too. So I like that pick. This pick is very difficult for me. I did go Christian Barmore. The Raiders are notorious for picking highly rated defensive linemen kind of thing. So I think Barmore, they missed on a couple the other year, 2 years ago now, I think. But
yep,
Barmore's a strong defensive lineman where he can make an impact right away to the NFL, and I think that's what the Raiders really need. So I like this pick for the Raiders.
And people forget the Raiders cut Maurice Hurst like 2 weeks ago. Obviously, an interior D lineman for them, and like you said, John Gruden loves going D lineman early, and they got a hole to fill on the defensive side of the ball. So Barmore, he's risen up the draft rankings. He had a really good college football playoff, looked like a top 10 pick. He was a little bit inconsistent to start the season, but he kind of caught on there at the end. And if the Raiders can capture some of that Barmore college football playoff magic, he's going to be a fantastic player for them on the inside. Pick 18, Miami Dolphins back up again. I believe we took Jamar. Yeah, we have Jamar Chase go to them with their first selection at number 6. So they filled that wide receiver need. Number 18, obviously you see their need here, edge. And the best edge players are still on the board. I think they're going to pick Jalen Phillips from Miami. Obviously, Miami guy. He went to the U. I think that they need this pass rush, and people are considering him to be the most talented edge rusher in this class, even above Kwity Bay. He just has those injury issues, which we don't know how far he's going to fall with those. But Jalen Phillips, great talent. I think that the Miami Dolphins add a really good edge rusher here at 18.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think Jalen Phillips is a very good player in this draft. I wouldn't mind if the Vikings took him with our pick. I mean, I think it would be a little early, but I think he's a good player who will fit right into nearly every system. With my pick of the number 19, we have the Washington football team, yet to be named Washington football team. There's a few positions right here where I think they wouldn't mind taking, like Caleb Farley or Xavier Collins. But I'm gonna go Taven Jenkins. Stick him in. That's their biggest need. That's what I have in my mock drafts, and he's a very powerful tackle. He's not the most agile tackle in this draft. He might be the best available right now, and to protect Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're gonna need to not have anybody break his legs. So I think
Taven Jenkins, monster. Like the first play I watched of him, he took a guy like 10 yards to the sideline and drove him into the ground outside of the field to play. It's like that. You need that nastiness in an offensive lineman, and you love to see that. Really good offensive lineman for Oklahoma State, and he fueled a really good run game there. He plays right tackle, so he'd slide into the right side of that line. But Bears at 20. They're in need of a quarterback, but there's not a quarterback worth taking at 20.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want to solidify their offensive line. Obviously, they had some issues on that side of the ball. A need here says receiver. I think they're kind of set. They've got Allen Robinson.
I like their receiver core.
I like the receivers too, and obviously Allen Robinson is only on a franchise tag, so it's just 1 year. But Darnell Mooney showed a lot last year for Chicago. There's been rumors about them maybe trading Anthony Miller. That hasn't solidified yet, but I don't think they go wide receiver here. I think that that's a position that they're kind of set at. I'm going to go for the Bears at 20. I'm going to pick Samuel Cosmi from Texas. He's fallen down a little bit down draft boards, but he's a really clean offensive tackle prospect. He doesn't have any crazy athletic traits, but I think he can be a really good tackle in this league, and I think that the Bears would be getting a good player here at 20 and adding to that offensive line, which so many teams in the NFL need nowadays. And they're going to start flying off the board here. So I went Samuel Cosmi from Texas to Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago, they need a lot of things for that team, and they don't know what they're doing at quarterback, I presume, and yeah, they're going to need to start from the middle. I don't know much about Samuel Cosmi, to be honest, so I don't have much to say, but it's a need that they have.
All right, you're up with 21, Indianapolis Colts.
I went Alex Leatherwood here. Another tackle off the board. A lot of teams need offensive linemen, especially tackle. It's a very what's the word? It's a very valuable position in
Sure.
football, and the Colts need that. I mean, they're a team where they could maybe make a playoffs, maybe make a playoff push, and I think they're a very talented team. They have a good defense. They don't need much for defense, but their brand new quarterback, Carson Wentz, is one that likes to get injured. So you're going to want to protect him at a cost. It seems like all these offensive tackles that we have taking, it's to protect these quarterbacks that are so needed. And quarterback, it's a position you need stability. And Carson Wentz has shown a lot of potential. And in his best year, he got hurt. So
Sure. 22 with Tennessee here. I think this is a match made in heaven. Obviously, their coach, Mike Vrabel, linebacker, big linebacker for the Patriots back in the day. I think he's going to fall in love with Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. Zaven Collins is a really big linebacker. He weighed in at like 265 pounds at his pro day, but he's super, super fast too, and he's shown the ability to cover. I think Zaven Collins is, and maybe some people might consider him an outdated linebacker just because of his size, and people are looking for just fast, super fast, maybe not as big linebackers. But I think Zaven Collins for Tennessee, I think he'd be hard to pass up on for Mike Vrabel. I think that he'd be a great fit in the Titans defense, and he'd be making plays from day one as a starter.
yeah, I like that pick a lot. I had an interesting pick with the Titans. I had them taking Rashad Bateman. I just think that him alongside is Corey Davis still there?
No, he's gone.
I think he is, but
No, he signed somewhere else.
yeah, adding Xavier Collins. Xavier Collins, he brings a lot to the team, and they need a linebacker back there. They struggled this last year with a lot of rotational linebackers, and Vrabel's a defensive guy. He prides himself on his defense, and yeah, I mean he's a great player for a system like his.
I'm in love with Zaven Collins. He's one of my draft crushes this year. So him falling to 22, I think anyone who drafts Zaven Collins is going to be super happy with his production on the field. You got
Yeah, he's a
the
playmaker.
Jets. Yeah, he's definitely a playmaker. You got the Jets here at 23. They picked Zach Wilson too.
So they have their quarterback of the future now. Now they need to build on the defense, and what better position to do that than the cornerback position, as Caleb Farley drops pretty far down to the Jets. He's a court. I'm not. I think Caleb Farley is a very talented corner. He's not like one that's going to be shutting down any wide receivers, but the Jets, they're a team that really needs to stop losing and adding young cornerbacks and having your quarterback of the future. It's a good start.
Yeah, Caleb Farley, earlier in the draft process, he was getting mocked in the top 10. He's a player. He's a little bit slender for a cornerback, but he has the speed. He's just a little bit raw at this point, but he
Freak
maybe has the
athlete.
highest, yeah, for sure. And he maybe has the highest potential of any of the cornerbacks in this class. He just totally isn't there yet. And there's been some back issues that people are concerned about there. So maybe he falls a little bit further. So he ends up going in this draft after J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, but the Jets getting a cornerback, obviously they need to build that defense behind Robert Saleh and Caleb Farley, talented player, just needs to avoid injury, and I think Saleh can get the most out of him.
Yeah, I agree.
So the Pittsburgh Steelers are here at 24. Their offensive line, which used to be one of the best in the league, is looking pretty miserable now. They lost a lot of players, and if you look at the offensive linemen available, it's Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Redunz from North Dakota State. These are kind of reaches at this point in most people's eyes. Obviously, interior offensive linemen. You got Landon Dickerson, Creed Humphrey at the top. I think those are a reach too. So I think that they're going to go one of the best available players here. I think that they're going to go Greg Newsome from Northwestern. He's a really good player on tape. I think he can evolve into a really good cornerback for Pittsburgh. and be in that secondary, obviously with Minka Fitzpatrick and shut down. I would normally go offensive lineman here, but a lot of them got picked here earlier with Leatherwood, Cosme, and Tevin Jenkins going before them. So normally I think maybe they trade back, but I think in this scenario where they can't, they pick Greg Newsome, Northwestern.
Yeah, that's what I had in my mock draft as well. They definitely need a corner. I think they lost one or a couple this offseason, so it's definitely a position of need. And Greg Newsome is definitely the best available. I like Newsome a lot. He's one of the corners that I did watch, and I do like him a lot. Now this pick, there's a couple ways you can go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can go running back, maybe wide receiver. They have the best quarterback prospect in the last since Andrew Luck, and I think they need to build their defense a little more, as my last pick for the Jets did. And this one, my new draft is probably my biggest draft love is Jeremy Owusu
Koromoa.
He's a freak, a linebacker athlete. He's very, very fast. He can tackle very well. He's almost, you can maybe put him in box safety category, but
Yeah,
I think he can play linebacker. And with Miles Jack and Joe Schobert in that linebacking crew, that's a great defensive front, or not front, middle for that defense. So I like this spot for him. And he's a great tackler. I mean, he's a great tackler, and he's a hard-hitting player as well. So he'll fit right in.
Yeah, when I watch him, what jumped up to me is he looks like a strong safety. Obviously, you mentioned really good tackler. He's a very versatile player. You could kind of compare him. It's obviously not a great comparison, but to Isaiah Simmons, who came out last year, a guy that can do multiple things on the football field. JOK is one of those guys. He's a better tackler than Simmons is, but I think falling to 25, that's great value here for the Jags, and adding Trevor Lawrence and JOK in the first round is a really good gift for them, and they'd be coming out of Thursday night super happy if this were to happen.
Yeah. He's a freak athlete. He hits so hard. But
26, you got the Cleveland Browns. You got Kevin Stefanski making a selection. Obviously, they added Jadeveon Clowney not like a week or two ago to Myles Garrett on the edge, so they got some pass rushers now. I think with this selection, so they've had some issues. There's been some trade rumors floating around, possibly OBJ getting sent elsewhere. But even if he's still there, they've got need in the wide receiver room. They got Jarvis Landry, OBJ, and then it's kind of wish-wash from there. So at 26, I'm going to have them go our Minnesota guy, Rashad Bateman. I think that he'd be a great pick for Cleveland here. And I mean, I feel like, I don't know if he will fall this far. I know he's fell down the boards a little bit as the draft approaches, but Rashad Bateman, they take him right before the Ravens selection, and I think that the Browns would be happy if they could get Bateman at 26.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick. Rashad Bateman's one of the most talented and one of the most promising wide receivers in this group. I think if he's not on Minnesota and he's with LSU, I think he's a top 10 pick. I do see Rashad Bateman maybe slip into the second round, maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a good chance, but I could see that. But I think Rashad Bateman would fit in very well with the Browns. Johnny Manziel. Baker Mayfield had one of his best years of his career last year. So him with OBJ, a healthier OBJ, and Jarvis Landry, that's a great wide receiver room to learn from as well. So the Ravens, you stole my pick. I wanted them to draft Rashad Bateman. I think he would have fit. He also fits very well in there, especially it's a big need for the Ravens right now. But I'm going to go best player available, and it's one of their needs. Kwity Paye. I think he's a very skilled edge rusher in this draft, maybe one of the better ones in this draft. And it's not a great selection of edge rushers in this draft, but Kwity Paye is a very skilled player. So I have them taking him with the 27th pick.
Kwity Paye, obviously, he's got all the athletic traits needed to be successful. He didn't have huge numbers at Michigan. People kind of blame that on their system there. But Kwity Paye, many refer to him as the top edge rusher along there with and Jalen Phillips. And this is probably one of the lowest you'll see him go in any mocks. Normally he's going in the top 20. In this scenario, he falls down to 27. So Ravens adding
the Gophers this year.
Yeah, he did destroy the Gophers in our opener, and he I don't know if you saw the video of him today, but it was literally him doing like cornerback drills, and he looked like an actual cornerback. So he's got quick twitch, super fast feet, and you show that to a lot of NFL coaches, they're going to be super impressed with that, and it's obviously something that a lot of coaches would want to work with. So Kwity Paye falling to the Ravens at 27 would be a steal for them. We got the Saints up. Saints obviously need help at cornerback. Anything here would be a reach. Obviously, Asante Samuel, a lot of people think he could be the number 5 cornerback in this draft. I think he probably ends up going in the second round. Everyone else is a little bit of a stretch. Obviously, there's wide receiver options. You got Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Terrace Marshall, all projected to go in this range. But I think that they had edge rusher. I think that obviously the Cameron, God, I'm losing his name right now. Why am I blanking? I'm having a brain fart. Defensive end. Jordan Cameron. Oh my God. This messes me up. The Cameron Jordan, former tight end, and Jordan Cameron always messes me up, but he's getting older. They traded up a couple years back and drafted a player that was, he was kind of all athleticism, not a lot of production yet. And that was Marcus Davenport out of UTEP. I think that they want to keep going after these edge rushers. They lost their D end. I forgot his name to Cincinnati. Trey Hendrickson obviously signed elsewhere. So they're looking, and he was one of the leading sack getters in the NFL last year. So they're looking for someone to be effective off the edge. I see there's 3 guys that I'm choosing between here. It's Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, Joe Tryon from Washington, and Jason Oweh from Penn State. And most people would consider Ojulari to be this pick here. I'm going to take a little bit of a reach. I know some people don't think of it as a reach, but I do. Jason Oweh from Penn State. Obviously, some of the best testing numbers that we've seen this entire year out of this edge rusher. He's still very, very raw. But I think that the Saints, obviously, they drafted Marcus Davenport a couple years back. They're willing to commit a lot of time and effort into molding these athletic pass rushers to hopefully become one of the top leading sack getters in the NFL. So I think they take a chance on the talent here and the athleticism, and they pick an edge rusher at 28.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. That's actually exactly who I had. The Saints taking in mind as well. Yeah, he's a decent player. He's not one that's going to like get maybe 10 plus sacks in the first year or 2 of his career, but he's a solid player, and he'll fill that need that they have. Now here is the pick, and I had a few other players, and they already went in a couple of my mock drafts. And looking at the best available here, there is a wide receiver who I like, and it's gonna be a reach, and the Packers probably aren't going to take a wide receiver, even though they need it. But as journalists, we do what we think they should. So I think the Packers should take the best wide receiver available, and this is going to be varied between a lot of people. I'm going to go Terence Marshall Jr. out of LSU. I think he's got a ton of upside. I can't remember. Did he opt out this year? I think he did.
No, he played.
He didn't?
Jamar Chase opted off. Terrence Marshall played.
Okay. Yeah. He's a very, very talented wide receiver. He had a great year when Justin Jefferson. He was one of the top 3 wide receivers in the college football, in the best wide receiver group with LSU and Justin Fields, and Jamar Chase was there. He was number 3, and he was not just as good, but he was pretty close. He was a very talented wide receiver. He can do a lot of things, and he's more of he's a gadget player. He could play everywhere, and I like this pick for the Packers. I'd be scared with him on the Packers.
Got a lot of size there for Aaron Rodgers. Terrace Marshall is, I believe, he's 6'4", so he's a tall guy, and he's got speed too. So he's seen to a lot of guys as a high ceiling type of player. He maybe totally isn't there yet, but he's got a lot of potential, and guys like that can sneak into the end of the first round. Obviously, there you still got
quarterback.
Yeah, and you got guys there that the other places where the Packers could go. Elijah Moore is still on the board. Kadarius Toney still on the board from Florida. Rondale Moore from Purdue. But the Packers go Terrace Marshall here and add a second weapon next to Devontae Adams. Pick 30 with the Bills. I think this is just what I've been hearing and what I've been hearing lately is that the Bills actually want to move up ahead of Pittsburgh to select this player. But Travis Etienne out of Clemson, he's basically a 4-year starter at Clemson. He one of the most productive college football running backs in history. And the Buffalo Bills don't have a run game. We watched Devin Singletary and whoever their Zach Moss, I believe, was that player they picked in the mid rounds last year as a potential option, but that hasn't worked out. So the Bills want to add a running game. It's something that they did not have last year, and their offense was still good. So if you add a good running back to that equation, your offense is only looking up from there. And that player for them, I think, is going to be Travis Etienne out of Clemson. He's not my number one running back, but this is just what I've been hearing that they're going to do. So the Buffalo Bills taking Etienne at 30. I think that if he gets to that point, the Bills will pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I love Travis Etienne. I have for a couple of years now. I don't think he's the number one. I'd say number 2 or 3, in my opinion, yet from what I've seen. But Najee Harris, he's still on the board. He's probably going to go in the. It's either going to be Etienne or him in the first round, I'd imagine. I can't see two teams taking him. But now
you got to watch out other teams that could possibly go that route. The Steelers here at 24.
I can see the Jaguars going after Najee.
But they got James Robinson, who played so well last year. So it'd be hard to stray away from his success. The Jets at 23.
That's another one. Yeah.
Obviously, they don't have a running back either. So that could be another team. They obviously picked not Lawrence. They picked Wilson number 2. They could go running back just as easily at 23. But in this scenario, Travis Etienne's the first running back off the board to Buffalo at 30. So you got Ravens, your last selection for the Baltimore Ravens. They picked Kwity Paye. We had them pick Kwity Paye 27th. What are they going to do with their second pick here?
See, this one's very difficult. And many of my mocks, it's players who are still there typically. What they need right now is a wide receiver. And as I said, when you had them, or when I think they had another selection, but
Kwity Paye.
Yeah, how they could go running back, not running back, how they could go wide receiver with Rashad Bateman if he's still available. And I could see that. And if Rashad Bateman's still available at 31, I think they'd take him. Right here, it's just I see them taking Trevon Moehrig. They need a safety. Their defense is very strong up front, but can sometimes lack in the back. So I can see them going safety. I don't think this safety draft is just not that strong.
Yeah, it's not good.
So it's not a safe pick by any means. If they wanted to go wide receiver, they could go Elijah Moore or that kid out of Florida. I like him a lot too. So they could go one of those two as well. And they really need a wide receiver, but they weren't addressing the wide receiver as much in the free agency. So I don't know if that means that.
I know they went after Juju and Galladay, and they opted to sign elsewhere. But something to watch for the Ravens. They got 2 first-round picks now, obviously with the Orlando Brown trade, and there's kind of a fall off after the top 3 guys here: Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. You could potentially see Baltimore with this draft ammo moving up into the top, let's say 12. To draft one of those 3 guys. They definitely have the capital to do it. And this scenario, they end up not going wide receiver. And if that happens, potential thing that I could see happening is the Baltimore Ravens end up trading for Julio Jones. Obviously, Julio Jones, he has got a big contract. He's been on the trade market for quite some time. And Baltimore has been desperate trying to get guys, and they haven't landed any of the free agents this year. So they could make a move for Julio Jones, and Julio Jones could be headed to play with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Just a team to watch. Obviously, it's not very likely, but if Julio Jones gets traded, Baltimore is probably near the top of that list.
Yeah, the Ravens are gonna get a wide receiver. It's a good run franchise, good GM, good coaching. So they need
Sure.
help. Lamar Jackson needs help, and he can't do it all himself. And he needs a reliable wide receiver, and not Hollywood Brown who can't catch.
Definitely. The last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant of the first round. The Buccaneers are a hard team to mock. Um, I'm all over with this pick. Obviously, they don't have a ton of gaps on their roster. They're a really, really well built team. Their defense, their offense, they got a lot of weapons. For them, I'm gonna a, t- a position that isn't super deep this year, edge rusher. They obviously have really good edge rushers on their team now, but Jason Pierre-Paul, he's aging. He's 32 years old. He has 7.5 fingers, so that probably limits the length of his career. Only having 7.5 fingers, who knows? Watch out for 4th of July. He could lose a couple more, but you got to add. You can never have enough edge rushers, especially bring them in different situations, different pass rushing situations. Someone with fresh legs is always help to defense. So adding some depth at that position, I think would be valuable for Tampa Bay. I'm choosing here between Ojulari and Joe Tryon. I think Ojulari goes just because of his upside. He's a speed rusher from Georgia. Some people really love Ojulari, and he maybe might not get to 32 here, but I think that Tampa Bay, not a lot of holes on their team. They're going to take a chance on a player that he maybe has a lot of, or he has very high potential, and they could groom him for a couple years and hopefully develop him into a top edge rusher. So I think they would take the chance here, pick Ojulari, and hope that he can become their next great edge rusher.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I had Ojulari going a little bit higher than that. The one thing that I want to say about this number 32 pick, I mock them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting a running back every mock. Whether it's Travis Etienne, or I can see them picking Najee Harris with this pick, or I can see, like last year they picked, or no, that was the Chiefs. Sorry, but I mean they have, I don't, they still have Leonard Fournette, and they have Ronald Jones. I think they still have Leonard Fournette, don't they?
Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. They brought in Giovanni Bernard, and they have Keyshawn Vaughn, who they drafted last year. I don't know what their plan is with him, but they've got a lot of
Yeah,
okay running backs.
they need one guy who can play more downs than just be a third round back or a second down back. So I can see them drafting a running back here. I mean, it's not a need per se, but I think, I mean, 32 pick can really go anywhere every year. I mean, the Chiefs drafted running back last year with it. So
For sure.
yeah, and that wraps up. Yeah, that wraps up our mock draft.
I'm really happy
And
with this mock. I think it went well. Obviously, a couple players dropping, but I think for the most part, really good selections by these teams. And we obviously don't know anything. We're not insiders. We don't know really except things we've heard on social media. So we don't really know where teams are going. This is just our best guess at people that follow them, best available, combined with positional need for the team. So we just threw together a mock draft. I guess before you roast us on Twitter for our picks, obviously keep in mind we're not professionals, so we're just doing this for fun, doing this for the people. And if you missed the code that I gave you before the Cardinals pick at 16, it's you like that draft. And if you just DM us on Twitter at you like that pod, just say you like that draft and then give us your email, and I can email you that PDF of the 267 page draft guide. It literally has everything you want. You can know if a random player that's drafted in the 5th round was a captain in their sophomore year, and it's literally everything you could need in a draft guide that's easy to follow. So I would recommend doing that. It's obviously a great get for anyone that loves the draft.
The Athletic is a Minnesota favorite for a lot of news. I mean, in hockey, Mike Russo is one of the founding fathers of the Athletic, and he's one of the best athletic writers. So we all know how good the Athletic is, and they did a great job on this draft pamphlet. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with what I've seen. We've usually gone with the Draft Network one, at least the last couple years. So very similar. I like this one a lot. So
yeah, it's really nice. The reason I like this one, or I like these in-depth draft guide, is because For a lot of casual fans, I know that a lot of you don't really know people outside the first round, and for us, maybe it's in the later rounds, so like 4 through 7. But you don't really hear a lot of these guys' names unless they played on big schools in college. So when I like, let's say the Vikings draft one of these players, I have no idea who they are. I just search this guy's name on this draft guide. I find everything about him, what he does well, what his weaknesses are. So it's a really valuable tool if you're wanting to know about all these players in the draft as they get selected. I love getting a draft guide each year to help me out in that aspect. But we love doing the mock draft. Obviously, it's one of the best times of the year for us as football fans. We're gonna be tweeting during the NFL draft. It's obviously a big event, and we're gonna have takes on certain picks, and we're gonna be excited about certain picks, mad about certain picks. So if you want to follow along on Twitter, if you liked our mock draft, once again it's at You Like That Pod, and you'll get a lot of content from us coming up to the draft and also during draft night. So I would recommend that you follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, and make sure to tell us what we did right, what we did wrong in your opinion with throughout the draft, mock draft. These are our opinions. We're gonna be wrong. Everybody's wrong in the mock draft. That's why it's a mock draft. And
Exactly.
yeah, and just make sure to tweet at us what you think of it, and we'll put it up on the Twitter. And make sure to get the quote from Matt. And I think that's all. That'll wrap up this year's edition, our first ever edition of pre-draft mock
Definitely.
draft. It's our first mock draft we've done on here. Last year we started after the draft and we went over all the picks. So we're excited. It's almost been an exact year. It's coming up. I think it's getting close to an exact year since when we started this podcast. So yeah, we've come a long ways, and have you to thank for it for the success. So thank you,
your support
again.
And we'll be back after the draft. We're going to review the Minnesota Vikings draft picks, what we think of them. We'll probably also cover NFC North, how other teams fared. I know last year we didn't get to talk about it, but the Packers absolutely bombed the draft. So hopefully we get another year like that where we can roast a team in the NFC North for drafting shittily. So once again, we appreciate the support. Listen next week for our full recap of the NFL draft. And as always,
you like that.